We're 10 for the full suit.
We're good to go. Facebook too?
Yep.
I'm gonna call this meeting to order and ask that we all rise for the pledge of allegiance. Say it together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We unfortunately this month have, I do believe, several individuals that we want to honor, who have passed away since the last board meeting. The first, and if anybody knew him, you know what a great guy he was Andy Agrasco, who passed away on July 1st. He lived over on, Frank Long, Frank Long Road. Yeah. And he will be missed. Also Diane Kolakian, who passed away on July 5th. I don't know much about her, but she was a Pompey resident. And then Muriel Partridge, who a fixture in this town, lived on Berwyn Road. Her husband, Jim, and the family has been around in this town for a long time. And then we just honored Catherine Wells a few months ago for her 100th birthday, and she has passed away. I have her obituary, so I'm not sure of the date, but it's between now and then. And then last, but certainly not least, is this CO family who have lost two very special people, David, age 39, and little Mackenzie, who was 18 months old in a horrific accident. It wasn't an accident, actually, just a horrific incident in Montana. And I'm taking the liberty of sharing these. I'm going to put them over on the table. And we only have two, so please don't take them. If you can just scan the Q card or the Q code on the card, but it's a way if you want and haven't already to contribute to their expenses, family's expenses. So if we could just have a moment of silence for those 5 individuals. Thank you.
If anybody wants more of those cards, I can get them.
Okay. Would you mind putting them just over there? And if you have a phone, you can just scan the. Otherwise, I'll need to.
It's through the Pompey Community Church. So anybody, if you give the Pompey Community Church and earmark it for the CO family, it'll 100% of it'll go to that.
So, first item on our agenda is the policy. Last month, the town board passed a local law that would allow board members on all town boards to attend board meetings virtually for the new New York State open meeting law revisions. So this month, there's a draft policy that's been provided to the board for the consideration. As part of the local law requires that we pass a policy adopting when we would allow people to attend virtually. So I am interested in board input on this. You had a chance to look at it?
Yep.
There was a template from last week or month's information packet for a policy, which I used to draft ours. And so the highlighted areas are what's different from the policy that was the template. And really, the things I added were a standard that board members need to be physically present unless they're unable to do so for the reasons stated below. And then I added a paragraph that if they can't be physically present, that they need to, but they want to participate by video conference from a private location, that they need to notify the board or commission chair 4 days prior to a scheduled meeting so that we can accommodate that. And then the sixth paragraph, I added some reasons for why you could attend from a private setting virtually. And I checked with Tim on this. I just want to be clear that the previous law allowed for virtual attendance as long as you did it from a public location. That doesn't change. That is still. So this just means that if you are going to be in a private location, there's only certain times when that would be allowed. So comments, thoughts?
I know I'd be strongly supportive. I just think you make this as broad as possible and accommodate as best we can. These are people that are voted in, and we do whatever we can to come to them being able to be here. I think that's, it's very supportive.
I guess I would add to that, with COVID, and I think everybody became pretty technology savvy. And the idea that you can conduct business virtually is second nature to everybody now. I would also support it.
I think it's great. I think all those reasons you listed are appropriate.
I mean, only because of the public comments on it. Was there any, I'm just asking, was there ever any attendance, that, like if someone didn't attend for 2 months or 3 months, was there any attendance requirement to be on board, legal technical requirement? So I'm just asking if someone went to.
Yeah,
So results for the
town board members are elected. There's no,
They could have always gone to the south.
you don't have to attend any town board meeting. I wouldn't advise that.
Right.
But ultimately, what would be the consequence? You're an elected member of the town board. There's nothing you can do to force a town board member.
Right, so if you're elected and you still took a winter to go somewhere, it was still perfectly legal and fine.
For sure.
So
In the
there,
days before COVID, you would
You
have
just
to
wouldn't-
be
you
in a
wouldn't be able to
public
per-
place
How do
to
you go to
virtually attend.
all right,
That was part of the law. That was
you could
always.
still do, you could still do that then.
You could
Correct.
always do it then. COVID expanded the ability to attend virtually to allow people to be in a private place. And the legislature has, as a result of COVID, good thing, and one good thing about COVID is has decided that that is a good thing and is allowing board members under conditions that each municipality's governing body determines, allows them to continue to do that from a private place. So,
So really, the only real difference is that they could go from a public place to a private place and still participate. So really, there was not a massive change.
no. And unfortunately, in the past, before COVID, if you didn't want to go to a public place to virtually attend a meeting, and I don't even think this town had the capability to use virtual attendance back then, you couldn't attend. So if you're out of town, you couldn't participate. And as far as I'm concerned, I want board members to be able to participate, even if they're not physically present here. So that's why when I drafted this, I drafted it as broad as could be, so that it includes being out of town. Oh, I'm so sorry. Being out of town, severe weather, significant or unexpected events which preclude physical attendance. So, and also I added to caregiver, that section, I added and or family responsibilities, because sometimes it's not for caregiving, but if you have family obligations that will prevent you from being present, but you could attend virtually, so. But,
Yeah.
so this is a policy I'm proposing.
I'm not in disagreement. I was just trying to make clarification for the public that it's really not a drastic change. And if there is problems with people voting somewhere, it's their voices in their vote. You know, but if you are voting for something, then they could still vacation or do anything else and still could have attended before. And it really hasn't changed. The only difference is they could do it from a private place instead of a public. And it probably is still best to have, if you have elected officials, you'd rather have their input, rather have them participate than not participate.
And just because you're here physically in the town. There's been occasions where there have been members of this town government that didn't show up. So it doesn't guarantee your attendance.
Yeah.
I've seen where
Yeah.
people haven't showed up and that's why I brought it up, because I did not, as far as I could tell, there was not, really a legal requirement to technically show up X amount of time. I mean, it's implied you should, but there's not a technical thing where if you miss 3 meetings, you're out. That's not the case. So you should.
Appoint people, there's a possibility that you could do that because, but with elected officials, if you don't like their attendance, then you vote them out next time.
That's the
That's the ballot box.
That's really the point I was trying
Yeah.
to make sure to clarify out and put out there is that's
Okay,
we're not changing a drastic thing other than being at the private place if you're out of town. And this, by being virtual, it also makes it virtual for the people to
Yeah.
participate, which is for a lot of people, a lot easier than sitting out here in these chairs. It's a lot
especially
easier.
when we can't control the temperature in the room tonight. Sorry.
People would much rather sit there and watch a thing and still do whatever while at their houses rather than sit here. So I think it's good that people can do that.
Thanks, James. So I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we got the video conference, same policy and guidelines.
I'll second it.
Seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Renee, is that dated? Just make sure.
And I didn't, well, it's adopted date 1.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you have it, so then I'll give you a quick copy without the highlight. Second item on the agenda is Pivot Energy Tier 3 solar private. It's. Does everybody have everything? Because there was a lot of materials provided, Tim. There was a resolution. There's a memorandum that goes with the resolution. They're all put together in your packet. So, and then I did not.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah, they're all this.
Yes. There's also, I mean, there's you do 2 resolutions for tonight, one.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna turn, I listen to me.
well, tonight, I think there's 3 options that the board is going to make a determination on, based on my conversations individually with all of you and, based on the, comments that were made at the last board meeting. Option 1 would be to put the local law up for a vote. Both up or down, whether the zone change is something that a majority of the board would support based on the conversations from last month. I don't think that was, I think it would fail based on the conversations from last month. There's been any changes based on my conversation. But if we did that before we did it, we would have to make a secret determination. That would be option 1. Option 2 would be, you asked, I put together another resolution, which basically outlines the concerns that were raised at the last board meeting by a majority of the board, not all of the board, but a majority of the board. And that resolution would pretty much outline why there isn't enough support for the zone change for local law, for the local law. And the resolution would be accompanied by a memorandum, which would be in the file, which would basically close out this application. And make it clear that if anybody wanted to, any developer wanted to develop a project on that property, they would have to pretty much start from scratch and apply for that property. The third option is based on my conversations with Renee, supervisor, who has done some research, and I'll let you handle the research you did, but it's basically delaying a vote until next month to allow the Industrial Development Authority to come in and agency, I should say, it's not authority, it's Industrial Development Agency to come in and explain the pilot, because based on the conversations from the last meeting, one of the big issues was that majority of the board, one issue was that the majority of the board didn't believe that there would be sufficient benefits to the town, financial benefit to the town, based on the pilot which was proposed, and based on some other post-community type agreement offering to be made by the developer at the last meeting. So I think what Renee was considering is allowing the IDA to come in and explaining the pilot process and what a county pilot would be, as opposed to a pilot that you would enter into. And it's a very complicated, that's a very complicated legal issue in terms of whether the town board would be doing the 15-year pilot based on 47 of the real property tax law, or the Industrial Development Agency would be doing its own pilot based on the authority it's given under the Public Authorities Law to issue pilots for economic development purposes, one of which is renewable energy project. The authority to basically supersede what we did or what we would do with a pilot, and enter into their own agreement with the developer to provide that type of financial economic development assistance. Does anybody have a question? So Renee, I'll turn it back to you to talk about your research on the pilot issue. And
it's a little bit broader than just the pilot issue, but week before last, the board members were sent by Pivot a project benefits and cost analysis, a 5-page document. It doesn't change the pilot payments that the town, county, school district would receive. But they are now offering, in addition to that, a host community benefit agreement that would double the revenue that the town would be bringing in. It wouldn't come through the pilot agreement. That's separate and apart. It would come from a negotiated agreement between the town and the developer. We haven't had a chance to counteroffer, which is what I would like to do. So that's number one. I want to counter this offer to Pivot, and I have talked briefly to Gordon about wanting to do that. But secondly, because that offer came in and because it laid out in pretty good detail what the benefits were, what the costs were, construction, I started looking into it because that's what I do. So I've been talking to our tax assessor, Brian Fitz. I've spoken to each board member individually about this option of delaying the vote until we can hear from OSIDA. And I would want to delay the vote to be able to negotiate with Pivot to get perhaps a better deal for the town. I obviously wouldn't want to reveal my hand here because they're here. So that's not something that would happen tonight. But in talking to OSIDA, And the other piece of it is not just the benefit to the town, but what was raised last month was well, it's the risks and the cost to the town don't outweigh the benefit. But in talking to OSIDA and talking to other towns that have solar projects, the risks are minimal, the costs are minimal once the installation is put in place. So I think OSIDA also brings with them a backup system that would perhaps, if you heard about it, alleviate some of the concerns about the risks and costs of the town, because the hoops you have to jump through to get a pilot agreement in Onondaga County are significant. They just don't hand them out like candy. They're giving these out because there's some incentive that the state usually has, and in this case, it's renewable energy, to allow them to be exempt from taxation. But in exchange for that, you enter into a payment in lieu of taxation agreement. And as Tim said, the town could do it, but so can the county, the county IDA, which is the industrial, I should say that one.
No, agency.
Sorry, I keep referring to it as OSIDA on Onondaga County. But in any event, this might not move the needle, and that's not the reason for doing it. I am all about being informed when you make a decision. And I informed myself last week about a lot of this, especially the proposal that came from Pivot and also from speaking with people that really know pilot agreements at OSIDA. And I would like the opportunity for the rest of the board to be informed about that. And then we can vote. But I just feel like this is such a huge, it was a huge issue for at least two of the board members here about costs and risks versus benefits. And I think that listen to what OSIDA has to say. Let's see what we can negotiate with Pivot, and then let's come back next month and we'll move on. If it doesn't move the needle, fine, I will accept that. But I do think that being informed is the only way to make decisions. So that's why I'm suggesting it. But it's ultimately not my decision, it's the board's.
I think it's a good idea that I don't understand pilots or any goes into it. So would they meet with us as a group or individually?
I think I don't want to do individually, because then I think each one of you hears something different, whereas if you ask different questions, I think if we met as a group, which would then be a public meeting, we could all hear and then ask questions. And I did give you a little sheet in here on what OSIDA steps they require before you can even apply. I think it's telling in and of itself, but if you want to know what the application looks like, go on the county website and go to the Industrial Development Agency portion and look at the 25 pages of hoops that have to be jumped through in order to convince them that you're worthy of a pilot agreement. So I just think it's something we sort of glossed over, and I'm not sure we should have. So I know there are people here that will not be happy about that, but if we decide to delay it, but it's not a stall, it's about getting it.
I'm personally for the resolution too, but I'd want to hear what Bill and Dave want to say, because they were the ones that were interested in that information. It doesn't change, my reasonings are different, so
Right.
I don't, so that's where I'm at. I believe we want to hear what Dave and Bill had to say, but I'm personally for resolution too.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my opinion. Last month when we voted, I know that there were some people in the town that were less than pleased with my decision. My decision was based on the math that I had to run at the time. So when you enter into a job or a project or an undertaking that's this big, I would think that the town, everybody on the board would want to understand all the implications, which has to do with the finances, the environmental impacts, many of the things that were done way before I got here. I have 2 board meetings in, so, you know, I'm as up to speed as I can get based on meeting minutes. I don't have the history that many of the other people on the board have. But I think and if I'm wrong, I want somebody to correct me. I think there are a lot of people that learned a tremendous amount after the developer shared the 5-page document about the costs that were entailed with doing the job and the revenue that was anticipated and how the whole deal would come together. What I shared last time was, I don't know how anybody could make a decision on a job this big, $8, $9, $10 million, pick a number, without having all the details. And we didn't have the details. I have a better understanding today of what the details look like, and I thank Gordon for putting that together for us, for all the board members to understand. What Renee's bringing up right now is something that I'm not an expert in. The whole pilot agreement is done quite often. I think it makes sense to listen to what they have to say. I don't have a number in my head where I say go, no go as far as the overall town benefit, but I can tell you $2,000 to the town doesn't work for me as a representative of the taxpayers. So that's where I'm at.
Are you
Yeah.
talking about the original, no, I mean, the original proposal? Sorry, Bill.
Yeah, I think out of respect for Bill and Gordon, I'd be glad to listen to it as well. I think, you know, the OSIDA calculations for the pilot, I believe I used first time I did it, which, and again, I just used what was online, are close, maybe a little bit actually less than what was in the proposal we've seen. Or maybe I would use the raw calculations, which I think is based on megawatts. And still, we'll go to the presentation, listen to it and see how it comes out. So I'm open to option 3 and listening to it.
I have to say that Brian Fitz was very informative about the assessment portion of this. And if we hadn't stayed in with doing a pilot and having the tax exemption, we did the numbers to figure out where the project would fall as far as an assessment. So I think that's something to work off of, but I'm not going to share my hands with here publicly, but I think that I will talk to each of you individually, and, you know, if we can schedule a meeting in between now and September, to be a special meeting with OSIDA, and work on going back to pivot with what I would call a counteroffer. If you're all in agreement, do we need a motion to adjourn this? Or just adjourn it and move it to next month?
I don't think it would hurt to have a motion to table
I will make the motion.
the matter to the next month. In the meantime, you want to hold a special meeting with OSIDA?
Yes, we do.
All right, well, we can't schedule it tonight because we don't know what they're.
I tried to get some availability from them, but wasn't able to, but
The minutes will reflect that we're planning on a special meeting of the town board that OSIDA will make a presentation to.
and for those of you that would want to attend, just check the website and the Facebook page and they'll be posted around town.
But no decision would be made that night. The decision will be made at the next board. meeting.
Right,
At the next
right.
regular board.
Right, it's just an information session.
So is this information session something the whole public, the town,
Yes.
anybody that's interested? can
Yes,
come to?
and so, and although you gotta let the town board ask some questions first, you would be welcome to ask questions as well if you have questions. So it's heady stuff. I just want to tell you, it's not easy stuff to understand the whole financial piece of this. So, and the pilot agreements, you know, they're meant to develop economic development. So as long as you are in agreement to listen, let's put this off a month and then we'll do a special meeting and let's move on to the next agenda. Oh, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Are you opposed?
Yeah, that's fine.
And then you say nay.
Nay, nay.
Nay, okay, so 4-1. Passed. Okay,
I'll add my reasoning is, I think it's getting divisive, this issue is getting overly divisive, and I just hate seeing neighbors upset with neighbors. And that's the reason why I wanna, I'm just, it's bothering me, and it's not that I don't want to hear the information, it's just that
it bothers me too, but I think it's important information to hear. The next item on the agenda, and I'm gonna defer to Tim to explain it, and so that, because there was a zoning board meeting this past month that raised some issues where they wanted clarification of our. So,
So I was at the zoning board meeting, and the applicant had made a presentation to the zoning board for a use variance to allow for a 32.5 kilowatt ground mounted solar array system, I'll call it. I think it was like 130 by 12 feet. I don't recall how many solar panels it would be, but it would be more than a dozen.
80 or.
Yeah, I think it would be, it would be a small little solar farm on a property that's in the residential district. The applicant had claimed that the power would be used solely for his house and for his residence, and that it wouldn't be used for anything other than that. But our code does not allow any ground mounted solar arrays in a residential district. And secondly, if it's 25 kW or more, it kicks it into a tier 3 solar project, which would require everything we're going through for pivot for a residential solar project. So the zoning board did not grant a use variance at my suggestion, because I don't think they qualified, the applicant qualified for a use variance under state law. And but it did have some questions that it wanted to raise with town board in terms of whether or not the law as it exists is really what was intended when it comes to ground mounted solar on residential properties. And I know David Tester, the chairman of the zoning board of appeals, sent a letter to the supervisor outlining a couple of questions. Do you want me to read those questions?
I think that would be important for the audiences.
Should the code be amended to allow a resident to construct a ground mounted solar array system of 25 kW DC or more if the resident is not running a commercial operation out of their home? The energy will be used only for residential purposes, and there will not be a sale of the energy to any third party except the utility company, as is required allowed under state law. Number two, should the code be amended to allow ground mounted energy systems in the R40 HC, which is Hamlet Commercial, and HR Hamlet Residential zoning districts? And the third question was, if the answer to the questions above is yes, what process will the town board implement to ensure that ground mounted energy systems are properly screened so that it does not impact the character or quality of a residential area? So those were the three questions that were asked of this board, since you're the one that controls what happens with solar energy conversion system.
So, just to pick up from where you ended there, we've invited John Shaheen, who you can see his name is up on the screen, to be a panelist in this discussion because he was the chair of the committee that developed the provisions for the definitions, especially for our solar local laws. So I don't think it was anticipated at the time that there would be a residential ground mount solar project that would go over 25 kW. That's a lot of energy. So But I want-
Give you some context, because I don't understand.
Yeah.
I think Dave probably has a better idea of the context of what 25 KW is for resident or more for.
Yeah, I just went through this 2 years ago in my house. We put in an emergency backup generator because we didn't want our basement to flood. And there's a worksheet. If you go to Generac, there's a worksheet that you can use. It has every KW draw for every piece of equipment, electric stove, air conditioning, how big's your air conditioning? You can run through the analysis. I did it. I oversized it because I plan on getting a welder in a bigger garage, even though my wife doesn't think that's a great idea. And I do think that no matter how you cut it from a residential area, I oversized mine and it was 20 KW. I have no idea what this gentleman's doing at 32. It's an extreme number for a home residence. And I figured mine with electric, gas, electric air conditioning, 2 freezers, so refrigerator, 2 refrigerators. So I just don't know how the math works. Anybody can go on it. It's a Generac's pretty common generator, so.
So the 25 KW limit makes sense.
Does.
In the law. It makes sense. So it would be an extraordinary situation where somebody would need more than 25 KW. I guess I just want to end with that and then.
Okay, and before John starts, first of all, the zoning map is leaning up against the wall over there, the partition. But also there are maps right there on the table for people to look at. The yellow areas are residential. That's where it would be, where they're being asked to allow a ground mount solar at 32.4 kW to exist. So just to put that in context, where those areas are in town. It surrounds Pompey Hill, the hamlet. It's up in the north part. And that's where the project is between Watervale, but between Watervale and Hanbury. And then actually, I didn't know Spruce Ridge. I didn't pay attention to that. It's residential, not R40. I thought it was R40. Then there's some area along Route 92 going close to Manlius that's yellow. And then also the development, the lamppost circle development off of Orange Station Road. And then there are 2 areas there's an area, there's some areas on Route 91 heading in. So just to but if you want a map, if you want to look at it closely, they're right there. And Martha, if you want to grab them and maybe just just pass them around if people want them. I don't know how many I copy, but that way you can understand where it's being asked to change. But in the meantime, John, are you there? He's muted.
I'm here.
Okay, I thought it would be helpful for you to discuss what the committee on the solar local laws intended for tier 2, ground mount solar. Residential. Ground mount solar.
Well, we went primarily by what's allowed in NYSERDA's unified solar permit, which was something the town adopted, I think 4 or 5 years ago. NYSERDA was offering a grant if the town adopted this unified solar permit, which was basically a streamlined building permit, and 25 kW DC was the limit on that. And that's pretty much been the accepted value. Part of that is related to the fact that as a residential customer for National Grid, you're only allowed 25 kilowatts AC to put into their system. The reason why NYSERDA adopted DC, 25 DC, and why everybody else has is DC is basically most solar professionals, installers describe the size of the system in terms of DC, because you simply take the number of panels, multiply it by what each panel is rated in DC output, and you know what you're installing. It's very easy for codes enforcement people as well, because they can calculate based on the same basis or on the same basis. The utilities, on the other hand, they're concerned about AC power. So it's conceivable that for some of you that may not know, there's an inverter that the panels produce power in DC, direct current, and then that power goes through an inverter, which converts it to AC, which is what is acceptable to the grid and what everybody uses in their homes. The inverters have inherent losses to them. They're not 100% efficient. The solar array may not be 100% efficient as far as orientation. There may be shading effects. So you can end up with a system, for example, that's even 32 kW DC that's only putting out 25 kW AC. And that's all that National Grid is concerned about. So with all that, the idea was that at the time we put this together, the 25 kW DC ensures that you're below National Grid's threshold for a residential customer. For National Grid, if you go over that 25 kilowatts AC, you've got to have a secondary meter or become a commercial customer rather than a residential customer. So again, the thought was, well, okay, if we make it 25 kW DC, you're guaranteed you're going to be below the 25 kW AC acceptable to National Grid in their interconnection agreement. And also that at the time, as Dave indicated, 25 kW was a lot of power. Now, that being said, I know people today that have geothermal heat pumps, electric vehicles that they're charging at their homes. They're gradually shifting their home to totally electric to get off propane and fuel oil and save a lot of money. And some of those people are already approaching 25 kW. So the number that we used 4 years ago is probably, we're starting to approach that threshold. It's no longer like maybe half of what somebody might need. And of note also is the farm requirement, where we allow up to 50 kW for a farm operation. Again, at the time, we talked to local farmers who had solar installations, and 50 kW seemed like an adequate number. But I should point out, National Grid allows a much greater number than that. So
They double it, John. I think it's
yeah,
double.
actually, I think it's 4 times.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, I
100.
believe so. I believe it's 200 kW. So that's the background on that. I don't know what else you want me to address.
No,
Renee.
that's good. I just wanted, I think when at the zoning board of appeals meeting, it wasn't clear what the intent of the law was. So that's a good,
So it wasn't the question essentially, was it 25 kilowatts DC or AC? And then what I heard him say is it's 25 kilowatts DC.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
which means if you can, when it gets converted, sometimes you lose a little bit of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Approximately 80%. So it's 20
Okay.
basically.
So I think the first question on the list, which is, should we amend the local law to allow for ground-mounted residential systems to be more than 25 kW if they are only for residential use, that you're not running anything commercial out of your house, and that it's only going for residential purposes. What's the other one? And that there won't be any sale of the energy to a third party except for the utility. And I don't know how we will wanna word that, if we wanna put a cap on it, or if we wanna leave it open-ended, or if we even wanna do it. I'm a little skittish about changing the law we just passed. But on the other hand, I see the issue. And,
The concept right now is if you're in a residential neighborhood, you shouldn't have a ground mounted solar. You should have roof mounted solar. That was the concept behind passing the local law and restricting ground mounted to only the areas which are being restricted to. So does that still make sense to the town board? And if it does, then we don't have to change that. Or does it, or it's based on John's, John, you probably know it more than any of us. Can you generate more than 25 kW on a roof mounted solar panel or roof mounted solar panels? I mean, you have to have a pretty big house, right?
It'd have to be a big house or big outbuilding,
Okay.
yeah.
So the only
I
way you
mean,
can
they're
really generate,
approaching that.
the only way you
they're
can really
approaching
generate
that.
more than 25 kW is with a ground mounted antenna.
Most likely, yeah.
and
That's the concept. I mean, does everybody?
if you are if you are in a single family home that's zoned farm, you can do ground mount. It's the other zoning area, and in particular, the one that came before the zoning board is zoned R, where it's prohibited along
The yellows on this.
all the yellows, yeah. So consider where those are. And some of the area where this individual lives, if you look at, and I know they're small on this size. The right side of, or no, the west side of Watervale starts with Swissvale Drive in the town of Pompey, part of Swissvale Drive, which is R40. Or maybe it's R40. And then it goes to residential. Because the R40 is this. But the east side is still all farm, it's zoned farm. But the lots on the west side are fairly large for residential. But it's hard to see on this little map. But I mean, on this side, that's why the board is up there for anybody that wants to go a little closer. But
Over in the bigger yellow.
by a Watervale, right near Watervale.
Darker yellow is Swiss Valley.
There,
It's just up
okay.
right in that.
So those, I mean, those are somewhat bigger lots. But still in all, most of the, I mean, I don't know, would we want to consider if we were even going to allow it, lot size, there would have to be a certain, and also screening, obviously, I mean, because you have much more density of neighborhoods than you do out in some of the land zone farm. So those are sort of throwing that out there because there's several things we would want to consider. So Tim, oh, go ahead.
Neighbor issues are gonna come up much more likely
Oh.
here than they would if you're.
Well, and right now, it's not allowed. It's not allowed. And so if we change the definition of tier 2, even if we change the definition, excuse me, of tier 2, unless we also decided to allow ground mount solar in residentially zoned land, that district, this project still would have a hurdle because it would be prohibited because it's in an R zone. So, I mean, I think we need to separate out the issues because we want to address the one, do we want to allow ground mount to be more than 25 kW? Hearing what we've heard from people that have some knowledge. And then the second issue is, even if we do, is there any way we want to change where we allow ground mount solar to be? Does that make sense too? Okay.
So I'll give you my 2 cents. I think I think 25 kW DC is fine. I don't think we need to change the upper limit. Until someone can prove that, that's the wrong number, then I think that's the right number. Secondly, I think we are opening ourselves up to a tremendous issue if we are gonna go above 25 kW and allow ground mounted in residential applications. I can tell you, I personally don't want to get up and look at my next door neighbors with 18 ground mounted systems
Right next to you.
right next to me. So, that's the perspective that I have. And again, I'm not at all against solar. I think the application, it's a good concept where the application fits. So they're my 2 points. So
I mean, I love the personal solar systems. I think they're the best, but if you're going on, I mean, I think you've already got the ground mount for a reason, especially for the houses are close. You're opening up a pile of neighbor issues
right.
very quickly, and you're really, most of those times, you're not gonna have the room to even screen if you wanted to. The roof ones are they're just like a roof. They're not really. I think that, you're, again, if you're outside of the residential areas, then you've got usually more room and you can do some ground mounted ones. I mean, I'd rather see these than the great big ones, personally, this is what I like to see, but to me, it seems like it's awful big for a residential area.
Yeah, no, I think the current law is more than that. Make changes.
We don't want them in residential areas.
You
Too
don't-
close. It's too.
And it's not even, it's one thing first of all, I'm completely opposed to changing where they're allowed to be zoned. So I agree, especially when you look at the zoning map, it's pretty obvious. Like the yellow areas are in very dense, they're densely populated. And the issue of whether we increase the KW. As I said, I'm skittish about changing the law that we just passed. And I think that a lot of work went into it.
Yeah.
And I think we should stick with it.
My farm doesn't use 50 kW, could run the whole farm and the house and everything. I have a generator that, 50 kW will run everything I have.
And I think that's the other issue for me is I wouldn't want to do it based on a project that I'm trying to figure out why they need 32.4 kW in their house. So, do we make a motion we don't do we're just not going to act on this?
No, it sounds to me like nobody's in favor of, we will get back to the zoning board of appeals. I will get back to the zoning board and let them know that at this point, the law as it's written and intended is still the law as this town board wants.
Right.
And this applicant, I'm not sure how we're gonna, he's not gonna be able to build a ground mounted system on his property.
Yeah, I think the math was 1 row of 130 feet in solar panels or 2 at 65 or 80.
Yeah.
Then
The only, I don't mean to open that, but the only issue is, and I don't even know the answer to this, like if you have a 20-acre parcel in one of these zoning districts where they're prohibited. Like if it's, you want to maybe just think about that for the next meeting, like if there are parcels that clearly you could put a ground mounted system in and screen it.
How do you can you make?
You could say if your
Over so much
property's,
acreage.
20 acres or more, then you can at least bring it before the planning board for consideration for site plan, something like that. But I'm just asking you to think of that concept. And let me know if you want me to do anything with that. And I don't even know what the size of this guy's, the property was. I'm sure it wasn't that big, so.
I think it was 3 or 4 acres.
Yeah. Okay, I will let the zoning board of appeals know.
Thank you. Right. Do you want this here? Red or are they under this? Are they, is it public comments or is it?
It's related to this topic, so.
We can read them at the public comment when everybody else
We
gets to.
just wait. Yes, okay. Okay, so
Okay. So on supervisor's monthly statement, back page of your packet I handed out tonight. Really good news. We did receive the second of our ARPA funding. We received an additional $373,127.07, which matched the amount we got the first time. So that is now in the bank. And we did transfer that to our higher interest NICLAS account, so that we're earning some interest on it. We also got a fairly sizable mortgage tax, our first half for the year, $119,000. We need $61,000 to make budget for this year. I just want to warn you that we're seeing a pretty distinct drop in the amount we're getting. So the one we received this time last year was $153,000. The one we received at the end of the year was $146,000. So I think we'll still make budget this year unless something more drastic happens with the interest rates. But as interest rates climb, people aren't refinancing, people aren't buying like they used to. So I will probably be recommending a severe drop in the amount that we're forecasting for next year. Let's see what else. We picked up a few more swim registrations. We need about $270 to make budget. We haven't billed Lafayette or Fabius yet for their participants. So that's good. Justice Court fines continue to come in fairly well. We're pretty close to where we should be year to date to budget. We're just a hair low on that one. A little bit of fuel reimbursement in the highway. The rest of the way down through was pretty quiet. Nothing really jumped out at me. As far as the main report goes, our general spending right now is at 40%, which is low year to date, and that's without the SOTs included. And our revenues are at 87%. Our highway spending is at 32%, fairly low year to date, and our revenues are at 91%. So we're doing pretty good. There was no budget transfers needed this month. Yeah, I think that's all I
did you
had.
want to
on
address the issue of the increase in the IRS?
Yeah, we need to do that as a separate motion, though, if we're gonna change that rate. So do we want to approve this supervisor?
Oh, yeah, let's
report?
do that first. And then we'll go back.
I'll make a motion to approve the supervisor's July monthly report.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I think bank reconciliations for the town clerk, tax collector, and supervisor also went down through the growth.
I'll make a motion where you approve or accept the supervisor, town clerk and tax collector bank reconciliation.
Okay.
Bill seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Payment of bills, do we want to hold off? I know that we didn't, or not everybody's seen the highway bills at this point. Do we want to wait till the end of the meeting?
Unless there's signatures on it, you want
Is there, I think the highway bills went through. Yeah,
No.
No, not- there's still some. All right.
Quite a few.
So,
I'll
what?
just leave that
Yeah.
and start it and make sure before we exit the meeting, we
Okay.
come back to that.
Okay.
Okay, so the last item on my list there is the IRS has seen fit to increase the per mileage rate from 0.585 to 0.625 through the end of the year. That was approved for any miles earned after July 1st through the end of the year. So at the beginning of the year in our organizational meeting, we approved the 0.585 for the whole year. We need to make a new resolution setting the new rate if we wish. And then we would have to decide when we wanted to go back to July 1st and make it retroactive or just start it on August 1st.
Well, the one most effective is codes
It's
officer.
the code officers, yeah.
Oh.
And I think he had a few miles that he turned in for July, so we have to amend that voucher.
I would say, out of fairness, we should go back to when it would be effective July 1, but I would make a motion to increase our mileage rate for the year starting July 1, 2022, from that 58.5 to 62.5 cents.
I'll second it.
Second it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Okay, and I had one more thing that I didn't tell Renee to put on the list. It's, your budget time again.
Here's one.
So the state regulations are that we have to furnish estimate forms to department heads by September 1st. I usually try to send them out the last week in August. The state requires that they be returned to the budget officer by September 20th. I'm going to ask for them to be returned by September 16th, which is a Friday. And then we can prepare the tentative budget from that, and then we need to have our workshops. Since we usually like to use our Monday nights, we know the building's free. I would probably have everything all ready to go if we wanted to do a September 26th budget workshop.
So the deadline for the worksheets, the budget worksheets is the 16th.
I'm gonna set it to come back by the
10
16th.
days later.
Yeah, it gives me about a week to get them
Okay.
all, well, along with all my other municipalities.
Oh.
Well, it just, I'm trying to get you into a Monday.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get you a Monday
Does that
meeting.
work for everyone? Monday the 26th?
And do we want to start a little earlier?
Because it takes a little longer. I know.
Monday, the
Sorry.
26th of August.
But it's.
September 26th.
September, I think.
September 26th. It's just, it's, we'll get the tentative budget ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get it out during the week of the 20th.
So we'll see it, but
There.
actually going through it and
It's dark, yeah.
it's gonna take a while. James, I'm gonna have to tell you, you have to do the best you can because unless you want to be here till midnight. Start.
Oh, let's not be.
I forgot.
midnight.
You forgot we were talking. I'll do the best I can to get here.
What-
I'm a couple minutes late, but I'll be here.
Okay, somebody's throwing early time, 6:30. What do you think?
I can be here at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I mean.
I don't want
You do it on a rainy day?
I
Right.
can be here whenever, as long as I know in advance. 6.
So let's do 6 o'clock. They're trying to accommodate you.
Thank you.
And you better be here on time.
Yeah, I'll be good to you. I'll be yours.
Okay.
Thank
Isn't that a song?
Okay, and then I was also, our October meeting is on the 3rd. Do we want to say that we'll have a workshop prior to the meeting at 6 o'clock or 5:30?
In order to.
I doubt we'll get everything solved because at the point in September, we won't have final assessment numbers and that kind of stuff, but I think we should probably have something on the 3rd to make a decision whether we're going to have the
In October.
October 3rd. Yeah, that's our normal meeting.
All right.
So you want to do.
We have to make a decision at that point whether we want to do a tax cap override so that we have time to get all the notices out.
Well, if we go 6 o'clock that night, that might be enough time, and if it's not enough time, we're just gonna bump.
We can do it at the end of the meeting. Yeah.
Okay. 6 o'clock for James's sake.
And then do we want to schedule a tentative one for October 24th in case we haven't gotten everything settled up at that point?
It was always last minute.
Yeah, we'll have all the final numbers by then. A lot of times we have problems getting like the final numbers from the fire departments and stuff like
On
that.
health insurance last year. we got
Health insurance is a
very-
problem, yeah.
Okay,
And so the 24th will also be at 6 P.M.
Yes.
Okay, so we need to authorize Nikki to put in a notice into the paper stating those 3 meeting nights.
October 24th.
Yeah.
so I would make a motion to authorize our town clerk to do notices for our budget process for September 26th for the tentative budget review, October 3rd at 6 P.M., October 3rd at 6 P.M. for continuation of that meeting as necessary, and then October 24th for the preliminary
If
budget.
needed. That's an if needed meeting, we may,
You can always cancel it.
right,
The 24th?
yes.
Okay.
And then we don't schedule it yet, but our final public hearing, once we move the budget to preliminary, has to be by November 10th. So we've scheduled our regular meeting for November 2nd. So the
Well, let's see
24th
where we
might
are
make it a little
process,
close for
yeah.
the timing there. We might need to bump it to the
Okay.
9th or 10th. So that one, we're not ready to make that motion, but
I'll second it.
All those in favor? You better be, James. Thank you, folks. Motion carried.
And thank you guys. Earlier was really hard.
and that was everything I had on my list for now.
All I have is board acceptance of the July 6th regular meeting minutes, my draft.
I would make a motion to accept them. They were exceptional.
Thank
So,
you.
Second it.
you second it. Any discussion? Everybody get a chance to look at them?
That's good.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Mr. Highway Superintendent.
Yes, I am looking for board approval. Go to the New York State Highway Superintendent Association Training in Ellicott Bill. 9/21 through the 23rd.
Ellicott, Bill.
Yeah,
Long ride, brother.
it is.
A lot of breweries.
They do.
Yes, they do.
It's all work done.
That was one thing. The other one was, I want to get approval for a request for proposal to get bids on removal and replacement of metal roof on the original building of the highway department that is pushing about 50 years old. And the last thing was to pay for our payloader that should be in this week that we ordered back in January.
So we want to have the board authorize that payment in advance for when the vehicle comes.
They're supposed to deliver this week.
And so we would also need an advance on declaring it surplus. So that it's a trade-in, as I recall, isn't it?
No, we're gonna put it up for auction.
All right, so then the board would also have to declare it surplus, set a residual for it.
This is the old terminal.
Yep. You need to have it tested out and make sure it looks all right first. It still works.
Oh, I think he's talking about the new one.
Yeah, I think so too.
I want to make sure it looks good for you before you. Yeah. I mean, I can use the old one. Yeah, I'm sure you could.
All right, so we need to make a motion on each one individually.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I make a motion that we fund BW to go to the training session in Ellicottville.
I'll second it.
Do we know what it's gonna cost? Do we have a
vouchers.
budget?
Yeah, the invoices are in.
Oh, I haven't, that's why I haven't
Yeah.
gotten to the highway yet. Okay. So we have budget.
Yes, we checked the numbers today with Teresa and we're still okay
Okay.
as long as we don't authorize a lot of other training.
Yeah, second, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Well, I'll go right down the line. I will authorize approval of this. Did everybody get to see the advertisement for bids on the highway roof?
I did look it up.
Okay.
So I would make a motion to authorize or approve the RFP for the highway roof. And I guess there's some blanks that need to be filled in here. Do we do that? Or
Then you gotta set a bid open date, right?
Yes.
and that's the board's
Yeah.
decision. Okay. So what's your time frame as far as?
It's usually 10 days.
When to put it out versus when to get it back.
Yeah, exactly. So this is ready to go with except for board approval and filling in the blanks.
Correct.
Okay.
I have to draft a form contract that I have not done yet.
So September 7th is our next regular meeting.
But we don't have to wait till then.
We don't have.
No, so if we.
So you would have to, yes, you wait till then in order to approve the.
You could have it come back like before that
That's
date
right.
to be reviewed. You'd have to have an opening with the town clerk here.
Yeah.
Town clerk would officially open them and then they could be reviewed and then you need to approve them at a board meeting.
So the first blank on this, so should we do the blanks first and then do the, okay, so let's do the blanks first. The first blank is under beginning. When are the contract bids going to be? Are they available to be obtained? What is it?
We put them out.
Well, what is that? When do you want that to be?
When can you do it? Tomorrow?
Yeah. I think
You could probably post.
So
them tomorrow.
August 2nd.
Can you get them in the paper? Thursday would be the first day it would be advertised. If you send it in tomorrow, right? Thursday would be the first day that,
So do you want to say Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay, so August 3rd,
August 4th.
August 4th, sorry, August 4th. 2022, and then so then 10 days from that?
What do you think?
I'd give them longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's for a project.
I mean, we got, everybody's probably trying, roofers are probably trying to wrap up schoolwork. At least 2 weeks.
All right, how about the 25th? Which is 1, 2, 3 weeks.
That'd be good.
And then that's before the next board
Yep.
meeting. Okay, so on or before August 25th,
At 10 a.m.
it's 10 a.m., okay? Okay, and then the anticipated start of construction is,
It would have to be after the board meeting.
Yes.
well, we have to fill this in?
Let's say October, like October 3rd,
That's,
Yeah.
October 3rd.
Well, if we approve them in September, that you could have it.
I'll start after September.
But doesn't,
Like,
We don't have to have.
don't we have to give notice to the bidders of what the time frame is for the project?
yeah,
That's the start date, start of construction.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, which is the second, I mean, the first page was,
So we would stand September 7th right now is the first time we'd be able to approve the,
All right, so maybe the 19th of September, the Monday.
that gives them time to get all of the insurance information to us and gets it reviewed by everybody.
that'll work.
19th
so
of the month.
September 19.
Yep.
Writing this down, you fill this in, Nikki,
Yeah, I got it.
and then the anticipated completion date, and these are just to give notice to the bidder, so, you know.
End of the year.
Fair.
Well, is there a time frame is there certain things that this roof project can't be completed once it gets to a certain temperature?
That's all metal, so.
Okay,
There's no adhesives or anything there gonna be a problem. Okay.
so let's put 12/31/22 there. And then the anticipated completion date of construction, including all punch list work is, want to make that 12/31?
Yeah,
And what's the substantial work date?
December 1st.
Okay.
Why don't we say December 5th? That way it's our board meeting. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so I renew my motion with all of the dates now added in to approve the advertising of bids for replacement of the highway director. Second up. Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. You know, the payroll.
Okay, we're gonna have two motions on the payloader. First one should probably be authorizing the supervisor to make the payments per the contract prior to the next board meeting.
all right, I'll make that motion.
Okay. I'd second it. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
discussion? Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
And then the next one should be to declare the old loader surplus as of the delivery of the new loader, because we're not positive which day it's coming, right?
Right, sometime this week.
And to authorize it to be put on Auctions International.
Yes, here's the thing. I did get a trade-in value for it. But I seem to think we can get more through Auctions International. If I can't get more, they will still take it in as trade-in.
Okay, so we do have a residual then. Do you have that number with you, or let me see if I've got anything from the original?
Yeah, I think it was 65.
And they'll still take it even after.
I said they.
Yep, I found it. It's a $65,000 allowance. So you only want them authorized to pay the 136,000. No, that's a net balance.
Right.
That's the.
No, that's the net, the sell price less the trade in. 136.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have, if we do the auction, yeah. How they pay us back? If that's
Well,
the-
I guess that's the situation. Why do we want to pay the vendor prior to the next town board meeting?
Right.
Because when will we have the auction? You gotta, when will we have the auction?
I can put it on there as soon as we get the new payload.
Right, but we have to set a closing date for that auction because we need to know how much to pay the vendor, right?
Yep. Right. Would they give us 30 days to pay for it?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused now why we needed to authorize.
Action without, I mean, aren't those two separate transactions? They deliver the vehicle. We
Right.
have to pay them the full amount.
Well, here's the situation. Let's say we put it out to auction and the best price we get is 60,000. And we've already paid them the total amount for the vehicle. How do we
And they
read?
would just give us the 65, wouldn't they?
Right. They would have to refund us 65. And this is probably net 30 is what I'm thinking.
Can we authorize the payment minus the 65 and then the next board meeting issue the difference?
Yeah, because it'll be under 30 days.
All right, but they need payment upon delivery is what you're saying, basically.
But they didn't say that, no.
Okay.
So if it's 30 days.
If we can do it 30 days.
Well, I mean, they know where you live. so
Do you
it's
think we
fine.
could do the auction in
Yeah.
30 days?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
actually,
it's
the
not
financing terms on this,
I would imagine. You can tell
it's
it.
check net cash upon receipt of invoice.
And
Net
that
cash.
insinuates that we're giving them.
Yeah. Could it also, oh, yeah, well, it could also, oh, yeah, yeah.
Can we cross it off and give them our terms?
Yeah, exactly. I like that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the underlying state contract here that says that they have to be paid immediately.
And we should probably.
Is there any interest if we wait 30 days?
All I have is just a sales order in my folder. Probably, you probably have more information than.
Get it to.
That's all I need.
Back to 65 days and. Yeah.
I think I wouldn't worry about authorizing payment prior to the 30 days.
Yeah.
You don't have an invoice now, right?
There'd be another meeting by then, so
Yeah.
we would have it, and maybe he'd have the auction thing, and we could just say whether it's traded or whether it's auction.
All right, so that would work because as soon as we know what the results of the auction is, we'll know the amount that the supervisor is authorized to have the check written for. Okay, so we can leave that original, we can pay it prior to audit, but it'll be based on when the auction closes. So then the next motion that we have to make is to authorize the old loader to be put on Auctions International for the residual of 65,000. Auction closing date to be no later than September 6th, I would think. But BR, you can see what works best for them.
Yeah.
But we need to know prior to the meeting on September 7th.
Okay, I might have lost it because I was looking for something. Are we paying, we're not paying in full?
We're not paying anything until we have the results of the auction.
Okay,
And then we'll know what the amount is. The highest amount we'll be paying is the 136. Well, no, we might pay the entire 201,442
okay,
if we do better at auction.
okay. So did someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize BR to put the old loader on Auctions International.
And declaring it serviceable. Once the new loader is delivered.
And a reserve of 65.
Yeah.
I would second that. How did I understand? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Okay. Yeah, you want to talk about your, all that's been done down there?
Yeah, we've got a lot of work done this last month. I don't know if anybody knows, but the salt barn, the roof is finally all done, and that was interesting watching them guys do that. quite a lot of shingles they put up there, but they did a really good job. It looks great. We got a new fuel pump system, computer program that helps track all the fuel, where it's going, what truck, and what town, and fire department, all that stuff. Well, that's all been updated, and we got our new doors, our garage doors on the north and south part of the building there, so. Got a lot of work done this last month. We're started the first phase project of paving down in, let's see, we did Amelia Trail, Sagebrush, Clearwater Circle, and Swissvale, and Winsbury. So we went in and we're trying something new through Soup Coat. We're doing the oil and stone. You put that down, you let it set, you roll it in, you sweep up the loose stone. After 2 weeks, you go and you put a microfiber down, and it gives you a blacktop finish look. Probably half the price of actual blacktop, so. So I'm just asking these people in these roads to be patient with us with the oil and stone. We'll get there eventually.
Sounds good. I like the cost. As long as it still does the job.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to last 5 to 8 years, so. We'll see what happens.
All right. Good work. What I was looking for, because I can't put my hand on it, is the officer's report. But I know I gave it to everyone. I just somehow must have missed myself. So it's, oh. So I just want to make sure everybody's seen it. I don't think anybody on phones is here. No. So, if you have questions about any of this, you can always, give them a call. But it looks pretty routine. 12 permits, 9 completed projects, and 1 stop work order. Okay, everybody good with that? You can't ask them a question even if you wanted to. I think about everything is attached.
Sounds good.
Tim, we talked enough tonight?
Yeah. I think the report.
Love it.
So I'm gonna defer to Ann, Christmas to bring us up to speed on what the short-term rental committee has been.
We met the other day and went through some various laws throughout the area. Renee met with Helen, Bailey, and myself. They're popping up all over the town, so we're kind of trying to figure out what the best way to do. We know of 8 of them, 1 in Pompey Hill, 1 in Delphi Falls. Pompey Center Road, north of 20, there are 4 of them. Henneberry Road has 1. Pompey Hollow Road has 1. I've received a couple calls from neighbors that people are trespassing on their property. So we're trying to figure out what to do. You know, have people register. Safety is a big concern for everybody. You know, have fire inspections. You know, we don't know if we want to have how many days they can be rented out in a year. Should be open-ended. I mean, we've come up with not only off-street parking, if we do anything, we want people parking along the road. And I think we talked about, there's people that are doing it already. We would want them to come in within a certain period of time and register with the town. Gave everybody a little sheet on what we've come up with for your review. It's in a real.
Yeah, and I think the one thing you didn't mention that concerns me greatly is that I know it's 1 or 2 of these places where they're being bought solely to be short-term rentals. So what's happening is that will take housing out of our market. Affordable, sometimes affordable housing. So I think we need to be considering who is, if a real estate developer or a developer period comes to us and registers a property as a short-term rental, how many of those are we gonna let that real estate developer have? Maybe 1. So, I mean, we're batting these around, these ideas. It seems that there are a lot of people concerned, neighbors, about the impact on their neighborhoods if the short-term rentals start to really populate. We've had 3 or 4 just this season alone. Used to be just a handful. So, anybody out here who wants to, who've got an interest, who feels like they would want to, add their voice to this, this is really a list. We haven't made any decisions other than some like, well, and that we're not gonna allow parking on the road. If you're, it's gotta be off street, some of those things, but there's significant issues here that, and really the biggest one is defining what we call a short-term rental, because no place in the town allows, no zone in the town right now allows, hotels or motels even, and except in commercial or industrial areas. And we have, you think we have a little our zones, we have even less as far as commercial and industrial. So, and it doesn't fit within any of our other provisions of law, like it's not a farm business. And it's not a home occupation. So we really need to decide how we want to address the situation. Do we want to allow them? If we do we want to know that they exist and that they've been inspected for safety concerns? Things like that. So,
Are we trying to come up with some kind of local law more or less to?
yeah. Well, I think it's up to the board to decide if we want to regulate them. And because right now we have no regulation over them. There's nothing in our code that is other than they are not a permitted use in any zone, but we've got 8 of them. So-
I don't think anybody would know or think about it. And I know I've been approached by one that has asked specifically, what would we have to do? So I think that probably most of these places are willing to, and I mean, it's become a good secondary income business thing, and I think it's, things weren't thought of before, so I
No,
think it's something we kind of got to put to some paper sooner or later here if you do have to have them for fire safety, and you got to, there's a few things you're gonna have to have.
No, I agree. To me, the fact that we've never had this issue, I don't know. Vacation rental by owners, I think have been around for quite a long time, and we probably want to get our arms around at least how many are there, what are some basic rules? To me, the safety is the biggest one. That we should probably have some oversight for. Off-street parking makes sense. The one question I have, you mentioned something about taking away low-income housing.
not
opportunities.
low income, but like
Affordable. Have you noticed that? Has that happened?
There's a property on Pompey Center Road that's being rehabbed right now. It's a ranch style house to be made into a 12-person Airbnb that would have 4 bedrooms and would sleep 3 with off-street parking for 15 cars. I mean, the neighbors are very upset about that. So there needs to be a balance. Again, that's what we do. We balance everybody's interests. So we have to take that into consideration. With, the neighbors' safety, who owns these, there's disturbance issues. Most of these Airbnbs that get rented are rented because they're coming for a celebration or, family reunion, whatever it is. And it's a celebratory time. So there needs to be something in place. And I think if we define what it is and we ask people to register, for instance, that could be the way we go. Then we hand out our rules. These are what the town says you have to live by, kind of thing. So I don't know. It's become an issue.
Okay. Tim, have you seen this in other towns?
Yeah.
Do they typically put it in law or do they? Okay.
Well, many of them have, so Lyon recently has prohibited short-term rentals, which is 30 days, they define as 30 days or less, so you can't. Really commercial enterprise. Very, very difficult to police, except they're all showing up on the internet and.
Right. No, you should find. That's how we found some of the ones here.
Showing up on the internet, but, many of the towns are either prohibiting them.
We've been looking at local laws from other like towns.
Yeah.
But towns similar.
Alice has them in the village and in the town, but it's just not, it's not.
It's not comparable, no. And really, there's also the issue of bed and breakfasts, which are not Airbnbs, even though it seems like it. That's more of a,
Oh, really?
well, there's staff.
So we would
and-
definitely need to define.
Yeah,
the
that's
different
what I'm saying. The definition is really important. So, and if anybody's interested in working, on it, let us know.
And there probably have to be some kind of a occupants, you know, those guys would have to say how many are
Well, we could
occupancy,
start a
different size
state code
houses, you know.
How many people can be in a bedroom?
Yeah.
I think it's 3 people they allow in each bedroom. They come up with another. I mean,
It seems like it makes some common sense that, you know, if you have a X size thing, it would be so many people.
Right, so we'll keep working on it. Tim will probably be pulling you in to draft something. Okay. And then we'll see what the board thinks. We'll go from there. Thank you, Ian, for doing all that. New business. I don't know what, again, I did with my copy of, I know I gave it to Nikki, of Frank Irwin's resignation from the chair of the Environmental Conservation Commission, but you have it, correct?
Yeah, I follow
Okay.
it.
So do we have to accept that, or it's? I would make a motion to accept the resignation. of the ECC chair and sending this note, and he's been around a long time.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion, that motion carried. He's leaving because his primary residence is now in Florida, so he's no longer a New York State resident. So even though he's here summer months, he's down in Florida more than up here, and so. But in speaking to the rest of the Environmental Conservation Commission members, and trying to convince them or recruit them to take a leadership position, which wasn't that easy. I have gotten confirmation from Phil George, who is one of our ECC members, that he would be willing to take on the chair position if Kathy Bertucci, not necessarily Kathy Bertucci, but he had a deputy chair, and Kathy Bertucci has agreed to be the deputy chair. So I would like to make a motion to appoint Phil George to fill the chair vacancy for the ECC and nominate Kathy Bertucci to be the deputy chair for the ECC.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
Oh, good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Okay, carried. The last thing here is a letter I drafted at the request of Don Rubinski, one of our town residents who has been working very hard on the holiday hunt legislation that has passed both the state Senate and the state assembly, which allows for a holiday hunt for deer, but allows counties to opt out. But the legislation is sitting on Governor Hochul's desk unsigned. So his request of us was to send a letter to the governor's office asking that she sign that legislation. So many months ago, I think this board, I'm trying to think of how we did the vote, but we did agree that we would want the Onondaga County to opt out of the holiday hunt. Because town can't. It's only can be the county. So if the county does not opt out, then between Christmas and New Year's, there will still be deer hunting, which is great for the hunters, but not so great for businesses that rely on other outdoor winter sports, and also those that are winter sports enthusiasts who are not comfortable being in the woods with hunters. So this is the letter that I worked off of from the draft that John sent me. It was a template, but I sort of tweaked it. But I'm wondering how the board feels about sending such a letter. If you would, please.
When is her anticipated decision?
Well, there's some politics going on, so it's thought that she might not want to sign it because of some. That's,
That's 10 days to sign,
Bill,
and then it runs out.
but yeah,
once it hits.
but the trick is sending it to the governor's office, so they hold on to the bill, they hold on to the bill. So I think it's 10 days, if I'm not mistaken, that she has to sign or else it becomes law without her.
Well, then I hope that John knew that if he made it sound like it was already on her desk. But if it was already on her desk, 10 days is definitely.
Yeah, I think it's 10 days. if I'm not mistaken.
So it would then mean that there would be another holiday hunt this year at least, even though the state legislature passed legislation to oppose it. I do think that there are a lot of organizations that are weighing in on all over the place on this, so, but a lot of them are opposed. And I think the Sportsman Association is in favor of the hunt, who represents hunters, trappers, and fishermen, fishing enthusiasts. So, full disclosure, just so you know, it's not, but, there is more opposition than there is, I think, in favor of it. So we did, as I said, before a previous board meeting, I should have probably gotten the date. Agree that we wanted the county to opt out so that we would not have it here in Poppy between Christmas and New Year's. So do you want me to send this letter or not? That's all I'm asking. What do you think?
I vote no. I do like the idea of having open hunting season for the holiday. And I know it's a long hunting season, but
Very long hunting season.
that's my vote. That's my thought.
Okay. I'm moving your chair next time.
Okay.
I did, don't they close the snowmobile trails while the hunting is?
They can't open them until it's
So
over.
so that's, I mean, isn't that one of the bigger issues is the fact that
Yes,
you get some snow and people want to ride snowmobiles on the trails and.
during the holidays.
And, you know, and then what usually happens is you got beautiful snow and then snow melts. And the trails open, but, I mean, people like to hunt and, you know, it's great to be able to hunt during the holidays, but it's also, you know, you get this mix of, you know, people want to ride snowmobiles and stuff and the hunters get annoyed with that because obviously you're scared of deer, but then the hunting season starts pretty early, so
I think that's one of the issues that was
Yeah.
raised.
I think that was the big one. I mean, and it makes sense. They hunt through the Thanksgiving holiday. You know, so that I'm fine with it, but that's, you know, it is a little tricky because it is nice to hunt, but it is, you know, a lot of people are riding ride snowmobiles if there's snow and a lot of times there is.
Yeah, I didn't know what they did. They shut the trails down.
They don't open
They
them
don't open them
hunting
until hunting season is over. And I think it goes to like, I don't know, the second week in December.
Yes, the
Yes.
regular
Yeah.
season.
And that's usually, that's really the sticking, the only real reasoning to not the hunting is the fact that the snow is, you know, we have the trails marked and this snow is gone a lot of times by the end of, you know, you don't have a very short season to ride them anyway, so.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that.
I agree.
I mean, I don't ride snowmobiles, you know, I used to when I was a kid, but it sure is, you know, people like them. It's nice, it's a very short season.
So I sort of agree with James too.
Yeah.
And I'm just noticing that James and Ann have the same color shirt.
Oh, right. We're coordinated.
It's the important things. Bill, you want to weigh in or?
I'm not necessarily averse to sending the letter. Rather, hopefully delaying that, you know, people would like to talk to that are hunters and people that are snowmobilers and some that do both. and
Right.
Get input from them. I guess that would mean.
Well, we can delay this. I can bring it up again next month. If you want to just table it.
Yeah, I'm not this would make sense.
All right.
You know.
All right.
And
If you need to get some ideas, and see that do avidly hunt, is it a? is
I
it a-
think a lot of them came when we voted on
Yeah.
that letter for the
Well, and
county.
the snowmobile people came and, I was on the Sportsman Association website. They didn't seem to advocate one way or the other. They just said that this had passed, and if you want to be heard, to contact, I forget who's the governor or your legislator, but to contact your official. So I didn't get the sense when I looked at it that they were necessarily not, but then someone told me they was. So but in any event, there's people on both sides of the issue. So
this is really,
I don't think it's gonna matter if we wait a month, but if it's gone to her desk already, I think it's moved anyway, so. Okay. I think that's it.
I just had a question.
Oh, yeah.
It came up, into the sweater car program things. Or I was asked by the church, saying, how do we select, how does a date get selected for us to?
Oh, I know,
When
it
it's up.
conflicts with vacation.
Well, yeah, and I was asked to bring that up and find out, because for their planning ahead, they'd like to either know when it is or when it isn't, so they can,
And Tom can probably tell you just as easily as I can that it's governed by Cass College and the kids come back to school, so we have to be done by a certain point. So I think those sessions are sort of.
Usually the system that we've used in the past is we try to schedule it so that the teachers and swim aides are done with high school. And so that it's done, so we want to start it as early as possible, either at the very beginning of July or the end of June, so that we don't lose any of them when they start going back to school for sports and stuff and back to college in August. So we try to schedule it as soon after the end of high school graduation as possible.
I mean, because I was asked specifically and tried to simple it out, because the Bobby Church always has historically done their VBS the very first week after school ends. Again, kids are still in the idea of going and doing things, and historically, the swim program has been started right around the 4th of July, or usually the first, so it's usually right after, so what they could be done and all the kids good. This year, there
Well, we
was.
can talk to Cass College and see if there's any way to like bump it a week.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends what graduation is next year at the school, because it's kind of an interesting, because June ends on a Friday, the 30th, and July starts on the 3rd. So I'm guessing the graduation's probably June 23rd next year, so we probably want to try to start on June 26th, the swim program.
Is that so you don't lose people? Is that what you said?
Yeah, we want to get the program done as quickly as possible,
Gotcha.
so that we're not losing our instructors back to, because a lot of times the two-a-day sports start in August. And also a lot of kids that are in college go back, like my daughter goes back August 14th, so. And I have some other people that are going back even earlier.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, whatever, that's, if it's definitely gonna be earlier, the church would, like to know, so they could try to
Yeah,
pre-plan there.
I'll talk to Cass College about it. All right, I made a note.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
I would like to say how nice it was for the tractor post.
Oh,
I
my
think it's a plus for the community. It was so great up there this weekend to see people happy, having a good time, watching them. It was very, very nice. I'm glad they're back here.
It was fun. Loud, but fun
But a nice,
and
nice
long. It lasted
Yeah,
a long time. But it was a really good community event.
It was the first time I've been here, and it was great to see the Pompey Fire Department out there. Dan Palladino did a heck of a job with all the people that helped them put it together. It was a terrific event.
And it was great to see 3 generations of Leolakowskis. Ted was on the tractor and he's got to be 80-something years old. He was the one pulling all of the tractors that
Had trouble getting
had
off.
trouble getting off the track out, but then his his daughter was there and so was his grandson, was really running the whole thing. So it was very nice to see.
It was a fun deal.
It was fun.
I have to say that.
And I think we were all there,
Yeah, no issues, which was nice,
including him.
literally. Well, yeah,
That was an issue.
no, you weren't at all. No, I said there were no issues.
Probably should have
It
been.
was all good.
Okay,
So I just wanted.
no,
That's a
that's
good
good,
point.
good. I know there's some comments up there that we're gonna save till, and if somebody wants to make a comment, please sign in on the sheet over there. Otherwise, we'll be ready to adjourn.
We need
Oh,
to-
wait a minute, highway. I haven't had a chance, but that's okay because I think there's 3 signatures.
Yeah. and you also-
I'll make a motion when you approve the payment of bills.
I'll second it.
Second.
All those in favor, I'm just
Aye.
thinking, I'm not gonna vote on it, but all those in favor?
Aye.
So do you want to read the comments up there first so that,
They mostly pertaining. to them.
I think it was was it tier 2 that got generated some comments, so I can't see.
Yeah, it's the residential ground mount
Yes.
stuff. Chris Carrick says FYI, the typical residential system in Onondaga County up to now has been 10 kW, but that was before many people had installed EV charging for. He goes on to say, the rule of thumb is 100 square feet for every kW DC installed. Primary concern of zoning is the physical size of the array, because that is what causes visual impact. So adequate screening, setback, and height requirement can usually address these concerns. Also, panels are getting more efficient all the time, so regulating based on KW is an inexact and indirect way to approach it, as opposed to physical size and impact. Then Stan Gorman has a comment. Thank you for looking into benefits for the town on solar. This is from Stan Gorman. Please make sure the town is protected. Along these lines, could the board possibly revisit the communication tower overlay zone districts and possibly revise 165-10 local telecommunications facilities, local law to protect the town and the residents surrounding these districts? Sorry for the misspellings, text too fast.
Districts inside of- it's talking-
No, they're talking-
Tells that.
I think that was still.
There's one comment.
No.
Just a general.
Osida, or I mean, the telecommunications comment are assessed, they don't have a pilot. So but that's one of the things that needs to be revisited, is their assessments.
Regarding the solar, Chris Kendall Nicholas comments. I don't want to look at it either. Regarding the residential. Helen Bailey, this is in regards to the hunting, the holiday hunt. Helen Bailey, a lot of hunters are not near the snowmobile trails. We can't get time off a lot to hunt. Holiday season gives us a chance to get time. That's all I have.
If 2 people signed up for public comment.
Okay.
Nancy, go ahead.
Hopefully I don't pass out from the heat in here. And forgive me, I took some notes just so I don't repeat myself. Regarding the short-term rentals, I agree. In the past 20 years, I was living down in Hancock, New York. Small, unique community like Pompey is. And I watched the community change over time because of people buying up these properties for investments, absentee landlords, properties going downhill unsafe. It just changed the whole community. So I'm glad to see you're being proactive about that. And I'd be happy to lend my assistance if it would be of any help with that. I just wanted to offer my perspective on that, the person seeking the variance for the solar, kind of piggybacking on what Chris Carrick said as a family who's been deeply ingrained in looking into solar options for our own residents. I can tell you that 25 kilowatts DC doesn't get you as far as it did, 5-10 years ago. We've only been in our house for a couple weeks now. We built a new home. But we've had our geothermal running, we've had contractors there running. And just this past month with AC on just for a couple weeks, we're already at the 2,000 kilowatt hour range, which is AC. But that would necessitate 24,000 kilowatt hours per year, which would require a larger system. The other thing to consider is in the wintertime, your cells generate less energy. So even though you may have 32 kilowatts, you may be generating half of that. So if someone's trying to get off the grid, that may be why they need that excess kilowatts in order to get them through the winter. So I can understand why they may want to go that route. And again, EVs are going to start taking that up also. So it's not getting you as much as it used to. And it's not so that it's the 25 kilowatts shouldn't really matter. I think it's more of a visibility thing. It's more of are we protecting the neighbors? And I think that could be probably handled through other limitations in the law rather than arbitrarily limiting the kilowatt hours. Just my.
Yeah, I'm interrupt you because I know this is public comment, but I think part of the problem is that the net metering gets limited to 25.
Right, so it's already handled on that
Yeah.
end, so we don't really, the town doesn't really even have to worry about that. If they want to go for a commercial permit or whatever it is they want to do, then I guess they could do that. But our concern would be more about the visibility in the residents.
Isn't there a law about the ground mount, not just the kilowatts, correct?
Yeah, ground mount
Right,
prohibited.
and
I'm
it's,
just
yeah, and it's the same thing. I mean, if there's low tilt ground mounts that looks like a vegetable garden, except it's solar panels, so they could consider that, although they're not as productive. So there's other options for ground mounts that aren't necessarily going to disrupt the neighbors. I would say limit it more to like the area that it's in rather than the kilowatt hours. The other thing is they're becoming more efficient, as Chris said, and so you can generate more kilowatts per panel than you could previously. So you can take up much less space and still get more. So just something to think about. I just have to comment that you talk, obviously renewables are important. It's the way the world is going. But I can't help notice the irony about, personal autonomy. People want personal residential solar and we're restricting them and limiting them. Dave himself said, I don't want to see it in my backyard. But then when it comes to the community solar project, what about your neighbors' backyards? I just want you to think about that. Is there any way that maybe we could form a committee that could investigate a better place to put a solar farm that wouldn't be such an intrusion on the neighbors? It just doesn't seem fair to them. I'm not opposed to solar in general. I'm more in favor of personal residential solar. But if we have to have a farm, can't we look for somewhere that's not going to hurt somebody? I was really glad to hear you say, Renee, that you're going to go back to the negotiating table and talk to the solar company about, what's in it for us. Because when any corporation comes to the town and wants to take something from us, our first question should be, what's in it for us? Whether it's a dollar store or a solar farm or whatever, we should always negotiate in our best interest. I was deeply involved when I lived in Hancock with the oil companies, the gas companies wanted to come in and put in stations in the town. And we went through extensive negotiations with them. And we were able to get, aside from the pilot program, we negotiated the pilot program. We also negotiated additional funding for arts and culture, for sports programs, for education. Again, if they want to take something from us, what are they going to give us in return? And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Spacer. Sweet bro.
Good evening, everyone. Just up here again today, I mean, really great points made there about some of the comments and some of the irony of them. When we stood here a month ago, it seemed as though, the board was going in one way, and I understand that things change and that wasn't a formal vote. But just to give you a little bit, I've never actually given anyone my background and what I do. And I'm vice president of a $1 billion company. I am a director of continuous improvement. I handle multi-million-dollar projects, pilots, CBAs. There's more to CBAs than the hard benefits. They're soft benefits. And I don't think you're going to find any soft benefit here. If you're only looking at the hard benefits, you're looking at the $2,000 a year. And even if you're going in and you're renegotiating that, I still think that there's a place for soft benefits when it comes to making a decision. Also, pilots fail, and anything that has to run for 15 years is not a pilot. Since we've been here last, I was actually reading an article in the New York Times where, this piloted in California. California was the lead state to pilot this 20 years ago. Well, guess what? They're overflown. They're overflown with all of these panels they have nothing to do with. They're studying it. They're talking now about the contamination to the groundwater with the heavy metals such as lead, selenium, and cadmium. A solar industry expert and someone who works in the recycling business for solars has said that only 1 in 10 panels are actually being recycled. And that's 20 years of research, okay? They're not being decommissioned properly. And that is coming from the industry leaders. I'm happy to share the article with everyone. So the looming challenge, and I'm quoting, the looming challenge over how to handle truckloads of waste, some of it contaminated, illustrates how cutting edge environmental policy can create unforeseen problems down the road. The industry is supposed to be green, he goes to quote, but in reality, it's all about the money. And I think that's exactly what we've seen here. And I almost would venture to say that the negotiations are between the landowner and Pivot Energy. I don't see how the town should be any negotiation of that at all. They came forth with their best offer. They came forward with the offer that they felt was fair, and our board said that that was not fair. Yet here we are revisiting it again. And we're revisiting it for who knows why. The planning board has said no. The zoning board is denying someone it for on their own personal property. And it was 3-2 last time we were here. I mean, this is the decision. This is the decision of the town. More people petitioned against it than petitioned for it. Yes, you can't exclude people because you searched. I know many people that aren't registered to vote that are still living in
We
Pompey.
have addresses
Okay,
and we went through property records.
Okay.
And voter registration.
it was still more than what came in for the others, but you're not supposed to be speaking right now. Okay. Well, the town has spoken. I'm being accurate. And I also feel that, as we look at, how this is being handled, and let's face it, we're all here because the town supervisor doesn't like the decision of the board. So see, she's using her position to try to persuade them, coerce, strong arm. And I feel that it is a big misconduct of your role, and I will be having it looked into. Thank you.
All we have.
Make a motion.